it's hard to let go of the perception of control, and we think that, God is going to fail us, that if we don't act a certain way and do a certain thing, and then we're being unwise. But the wisdom comes in trusting in an unseen God to be God, to have a plan, to have a destiny. One I didn't tell you about, I work in the power industry, and so I'm always around power plants and stuff. And we had the whole power plant down for a major outage. We had isolated the natural gas pipeline that goes up to these big jet engines. And we were wrapping up the outage. We were getting ready to restore the natural gas pipeline back up to the engines. And we couldn't get the valve open. And it was probably a 14-inch natural gas line, pressurized up to over 600 pounds of gas. And we'd go over there and turn this valve, and it would only turn so far, and it wouldn't open to allow the gas to flow up to the power plant so we could restart the engines. So I called a friend of mine down, a co-worker, and said, look at this problem. We looked at it. I pulled the inspection cover off of the operator for the gears of the valve. Then we looked at it, seemed to be fine. Well, now everybody's panicking because we're costing this company hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour not being online.
If you don't get it running.
If we don't get it running, it's costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour.
Wow.
So they start sending people down, and each person they send down, I'd have to go over there and show them. I'd rotate the valve as far as it would go open, show them that it was bound, it wouldn't come open any further, rotate it back closed. Okay, and then somebody else would come down, somebody else would come down. Well, finally they realized we're going to probably have to change out this valve. So they sent the main contractor for the mechanical work down there to take a look at it. And I'm sitting there, and I've been hanging over this valve and pointing at things all day long, and I'm looking at it, and I'm turning it, and I'm looking at it, and all of a sudden, boom! This valve explodes right in our faces. And I turn around and begin to run, and I can hear the 600 pounds of natural gas blowing into the air, and there's oils and stuff in the gas that are being released into the air. And I turned around to look at the person that I've known him for 7, 8 years at this time.
Right.
And I turned around to see how he is, and he's laying on the ground, face down, and black blood curdling out of his face. And I called away for help, started isolating valves to make sure everything was closed, and other people came down. To make a long story short, the man lived, but it destroyed his whole lower jaw, fractured his skull all the way up into his eye socket.
Wow, and you just walked.
I didn't have a scratch.
Didn't have a scratch. Man.
And out of everybody in that plant, my face was in that valve for 3 hours straight, showing people, pointing at stuff, opening and closing it. If that valve was going to take out anybody, it should have.
It should have been you.
It should have been me.
Wow, this is good.
And I worked at that place for 9 years, and like I was telling you, it actually got to the point where guys were saying they didn't want to work with me because if somebody got hurt, it was going to be them.
And they're going to walk away in any accident, God forbid another accident. But then they knew that if anything should happen, you would just walk away. Yeah. It explains the covenant, with God. And I was thinking about it when you were just talking about how close we are to the heart of God. That He said if anybody touches us, He touches the very eye of God. So how precious I think about why Jesus even came to die for us in the first place, to bring us out of the world and just set us apart, because of the work of the gospel. And I know that God has a lot that He wants to do with your life. So through all this series of events, God preserve your life because your work is not done yet.
Exactly.
Your work is not done yet.
It has nothing to do with the quality of believer I am.
I know.
It has nothing to do with anything that I can do for Him. It has everything to do with my job. you know. And, you know, one thing our pastor always said to us is don't be the one keeping God's work from getting done. Because he's not going to be a happy person. It's going to cost you to stop him, to change plans and find somebody else to do your work.
He'll be an unhappy camper.
Hallelujah. And then that makes me remember Judas. You know, Jesus was going to be betrayed anyway, you know, but it doesn't have to be through Judas. I guess you give the devil a little window in your life, and he's going to come in fully loaded and just begin to mess up your life. And I remember one of my pastors kept saying that you don't have to be Judas. You know, I know stuff is supposed to happen, but it doesn't have to come through you. You understand? Like you are saying that you're not supposed to be the one to stop God from doing, you know, anything. Like there's a process in motion, and you just go in there, just going to interrupt stuff, and God had to search His plans. And you can talk about Esther, you know, when she was going through a difficult time, trying to make a decision whether she has to move forward or not. You know, Mordecai have to come in and say, whether you do it or not, it's still going to be done. You understand? Even if you say you don't want to do it,